welcome to Busted Speakers. I'm Alex.
I'm Eddie.
And I'm Ed.
Yes, we could almost make a new Cartoon Network show, Ed, Alex and Eddie.
No, not quite as good. Like, you need to legally change your name to Double D.
Never quite lived up to the original. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we're reviewing the second and third albums.
Technically
by Lil Uzi Vert, Eternal Atake, and then the sort of deluxe edition bonus album, Lil Uzi Vert Versus the World 2, which is also part of the same album, although it is a different album. So, yeah, lots of stuff to cover here, lots of music, and it's fair enough because it's his first
brilliant
proper project since Love Is Rage 2, right?
Aye, that's right. Which is 3 years. Which
yeah.
I know it's became a bit of a joke to say now, but 3 years in mumble rappers' age is like 35. People have been waiting ages for this new album.
True.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, so I pretty much got into Lil Uzi Vert from Eddie here. He recommended some proper sick tunes back in the day.
Aye.
Pretty much all from his mixtape that is the one here is the sequel to Lil Uzi Vert Versus the World, P's and Q's, Canadian Goose, Money Longer. All these songs got me into him back then, and I'm guessing that's where you two guys first came across him too.
For me, I really hold Lil Uzi Vert very close to my heart in terms of when I was growing up.
Right.
I was in a pretty rubbish part in my life, and for some reason, you know, when you had that new stream of rappers, so I'm talking him and Lil Yachty and Playboy Carti, that kind of all came out at the same time, and they just also happened obviously to be on that. What was that thing again, where like all of them appeared with 21 Savage and Kodak Black?
Oh, is that like XXXL?
Yeah.
Thing?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, the Freshmen.
That's it, the Freshmen, that's it. I just happened to get all of them before that was a thing.
Right.
And one of the things I just tried out was P's and Q's.
Nice.
And hearing that sort of instrumental, I was like, this is exactly what I'll look into for a song. It's just because it was so melodic and it just sounded like something out of a SpongeBob SquarePants soundtrack. But I loved it for that. And I was like, this is great, this. And I thought, go on, then I'll try the mixtape. And it took a few listens, but I thought, I really like this. And I got into his later mixtapes when he released them. Especially, I quite liked a few tracks off the one that he done, which was a side project with Gucci Mane as well. There's a few really good tracks on that.
Yeah.
And then obviously when he released his first debut album, I was a huge fan of that too. But sadly, I've just, like most people, been twiddling my thumbs thinking, where's this new album? Where's this new album? And obviously I feel a bit more spoilt now that he actually released 2 albums technically. Don't know, Ed, how did you get into Lil Uzi Vert, or how did you discover of him?
Well, before I get into that, can I just ask, is Eternal Atake one of those albums like Yandy, where it was kind of hyped up for a long time and was supposedly going to come out on one release date and then it just didn't happen? Am I right in thinking that?
Definitely. I'd say a lot of, again, you find this a lot with, I don't want to say mumble rappers, like in general, but I don't know what it is, but it seems to be like a common thing where someone announces the release of something and it never comes out on its date.
Yeah.
Young Thug is awful for that. He's announced like 10 different albums and none of them have ever came into fruition, ever. Playboy Carti's terrible for that as well.
They should just make an album and then surprise release it, if that's what happens.
Or just make the album and you know it's been made. Don't just think, right, one day I'm going to make an album. What should I title it? Yeah, I'll call it Album. And then I'll post to everybody.
Time to hop on Twitter and tell people before I even go in the studio.
Yeah, exactly. It's coming out soon, guys. It's coming out soon. It's irritating. Ski Master Slum God was awful for that as well. That was like a really bad release, like how that was pulled out. And yeah, I think you're right, Ed, like this album as well. Just not very good in terms of how it was eventually released. Just too much waiting around. I know he had a lot of issues with his manager and the record label he was on as well. It might have been a thing, kind of, you referenced Kanye West, it might have been a thing where he's released a few albums. Well, he hasn't released a few albums, he's made a few albums and they never actually got released, and he's only went back to the drawing board and made this. Yeah. So like he could have released a few albums in that time but just never got around to it.
Yeah, because obviously Jesus is King was largely just a bunch of Yandy reworks from what I understand. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if the same thing happened here. But that's just music.
Definitely.
Like, it's an ongoing process when you're making it. Things change completely. But obviously people shouldn't be promising release dates for things that are unfinished or possibly not even started.
No, definitely not.
But regardless of that tangent, I unfortunately can't speak on Lil Uzi Vert anywhere near as much as Eddie can. Eddie is clearly very well versed in the ways of Lil Uzi Vert.
Thank you. Very well Lil Uzi versed.
I know a plebeian amount about him. I really like EXO Tour Life, since I'm pretty sure that's where I first heard of him, unless the Migos song he was on came out before then, or blew up before then. It was around about the same time, from what I remember.
It was the same year Culture came out, but I always thought it was weird when that song blew up, because that was just like randomly released on an EP. It never like was made into a single. It was only because someone posted like a GIF as a music video to that, and it became like hundreds and it like blew up. And then he just so happened to like obviously make that his like signature song. I always thought that was weird, but I'm not going to go on a tangent. You seem to get like people who don't even release singles anymore. They just release a song, and a song just happens to catch fire, and that ends up becoming like the main signature song.
I'm pretty sure Bottoms Up, We Was at the Club by the Boy Boy West Coast was released on TikTok before it was ever widely available on any streaming.
Yeah, that's true.
And he knew exactly what he was doing with that, because it worked out. And obviously that song's amazing. But we're not here to talk about the Boy Boy West Coast.
No.
No, sadly not. We'll have to wait until his new album comes out, Anxiety and Depression, coming out soon.
Damn, I had no idea he was working on a full length.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he's got next week. I think it's going to be like a moody emo rap album. But again, it kind of works what you were saying though, Ed, because you're on about the way he released that song, and that's what ended up, I think, making Lil Uzi Vs the World 2 such a hype, because a lot of the songs were leaks, and when he released some of the songs, it was either leaks or like he previewed them for like a minute, and people got obsessed with like a lo-fi version of it. So that's probably why Lil Uzi Vs the World 2 was so probably even more hyped up than Eternal Atake, when people knew certain songs were going to come out, because most people already knew of the songs because like 30 seconds of it already existed, so they already knew that they liked the song in a way. So it's funny that I can't really think in terms of anything other than like the more internet age where like this sort of weird hype exists, to be honest. It's strange.
But yeah, I can wrap up my experience with Uzi in about 5 seconds, because I've never listened to a full length by him before. These two are my first real exposure to him, because it's largely just been the odd single or a feature in the past for me. So I can't really speak on any of this in terms of being a fan, because I haven't really digested or engaged with his work enough to be a fan, if that's something that could happen. But also, I'm not usually like this in these reviews. I usually listen to everything we plan to review at least twice, but I've only heard Eternal Atake once, so I don't want to speak on it too much in this review. I'm kind of just going to comment on what I feel confident commenting on. But
that's fair.
LUV Vs the World 2, I have heard a couple of times, because I've enjoyed it more as a general mood listen, so I'll definitely say a bit more about that one. But yeah.
No, that's fair. I agree with you, Ed, in terms of my enjoyability for both albums. I definitely prefer Lil Uzi Vs the World 2 a lot more.
That seems to be the general consensus.
Alex, do you want to like quick thoughts on Eternal Atake?
The way I was listening to this was like, obviously the main version on Spotify now is both versions.
The deluxe, yeah, it's like a deluxe version. Really weird.
So I was listening to Versus the World first, and then into Eternal Atake, which I've seen people complain about this being too long. It's 2 albums. If you listen to any 2 albums in a row, you know, it's going to be a long time. And
exactly.
It's been so long since he's produced a full-length one that, you know, I'm not too bothered by that. This is a lot of songs that are probably long overdue. So, Eternal Atake. Now, the thing with me is I don't actually think it's that much weaker or any less fun than Versus the World. I think I prefer Versus the World mainly because it's a little bit shorter and the features are more fun.
I'd say the thing that really holds Eternal Atake back behind LUV Vs the World 2 is probably the lyrical side of things for me. I'd say the instrumentals on Eternal Atake definitely sound more put together, but also as a result, the kind of unique vibe and energy that you get from this brand of trap rap, which I don't particularly enjoy these two albums that much. I don't think I've said that yet, but that's not to say I'm not a fan of this style of music, because I really like Lil Yachty's earlier work, Lil Boat 1 especially. I absolutely love the mood of that mixtape.
Definitely.
And really, it does just come down to a vibe and mood for me. You're not coming into these songs for anything like consciously deep or meaningful on the lyrical front. So really what held Eternal Atake back for me is when the lyrics became intrusive, because I found them so obnoxious that it detracted from me really sinking into the instrumental. And also the reason I mentioned that the instrumentals sound more put together on that album is that I kind of like the lo-fi quality of, or at least comparatively lo-fi quality of the mixtape a lot better. Well, LUV Vs the World 2 is a mixtape, right? Or is it just another album?
Well, I think it is just another album, because it is like
that's
the
fair.
deluxe version of this, and it did actually... Well, I think it's weird getting into what definitions of what's actually an album or mixtape, because mixtapes can chart, they can also... not be free, so what's a real mixtape?
The reason for my confusion is that LUV Vs the World 1 was a mixtape.
Exactly, yeah, so it's easy to see why. So, just a little more thoughts on Eternal Atake. So, it's got this like slight loose space concept to it.
Yeah.
What the hell is going on there?
The skits, man.
It doesn't actually inform any of the actual songs very much, but there's like little... like 30-second, 10-second skits at the end of songs where he gets abducted, then he's stuck in a room, then he has to press a button, then he leaves the room, then he sees something crazy, then he presses another button, then he's back on Earth.
No, like, I don't hold those skits against any of the songs.
No, it's just a funny aspect.
They're just so badly placed. It's just, I don't know if it's supposed to be funny or not, but like, it's just him going, what's going on? What the... And my favourite bit easily at the end is like, at the end, you know, the track before the technically XO2 Live Part 2, he's just like on the phone to somebody. Yeah. And I'm like, what is this shit?
No, he's like saying, I don't know what happened.
Yeah, he goes, I don't know what happened. And you can't understand what the person on the phone's saying. And he goes, and he goes, no. Like, what is he saying no to?
I also don't know what happened. Like, I guess just a mad adventure through space beyond his control. We'll leave it at that. Also, that song you were talking about with Secure the Bag, that's not like the same as the one that was on that collab with Gucci Mane, is it?
No, it's not, no.
A whole new song.
No, they've secured a new bag in this track.
A whole new bag. He should have kept with the bag for life.
Especially right now, you gotta stock up on the bags, boys.
That's right.
Yeah, just to speak on the skits on Eternal Atake for a second, they kind of sound like when you're playing one of those old computer terminal games where it's all that you are given to visualize what is going on is text that is just completely blunt, or
like a Commodore 64 game or something.
Yeah. And it sounds like Lil Uzi is just narrating what's happening in the most blunt and badly acted way ever, because he just keeps saying to himself, "Oh, I'm going to press this button." Yeah, but why? What button? Why are you
press the
press
stop
it?
button, please, Uzi. Just press the stop button. Stop recording these crappy skits.
Yeah, they're funny. Don't get me wrong. It's funny how bad they are. I know we're not judging this as if it's a film or anything, but he's such a bad actor.
Bad voice actor, yeah.
That's something I actually took note of, and usually when I listen to skits, even when they're really bad, I at least feel like the artists are just being themselves.
Mm-hmm.
But here, because he's in this ridiculous situation where he's supposedly being abducted, and there's all these old stock Windows samples in the background to make it sound like he's in a spaceship.
I think the problem is as well, it's like, I know it's trying to be a concept album with the skits, but like there's nothing, I'm afraid, with the songs themselves that have any link or cohesion with what's going on.
Yeah, there's no link at all. It is just a tertiary aspect to it, and it is kind of cool.
Like, the only thing I can think of is like Lil Uzi is like, I'll press this button, and then he raps for 3 minutes randomly while being abducted, and then presses another button. Like, that's the only thing I can imagine that being as a
image
plot.
of that is really funny.
Right, just hang on a minute, aliens. I'm going to rap for a couple of minutes, and then I'll press another button. That's the only thing I can think of as a plot, which would be funny if that was actually filmed, but it doesn't make as much sense if you're just listening to it, to be fair.
Yeah, that'd be funny as like the music videos, but it is only lyric videos that I've seen for some of these songs. So this is not cloud rap anymore, really. It is just trap.
Well, what I was going to say is, obviously, I was going to mention how the album's technically split into 3 sections.
I did see that.
So the first section, Baby Pluto, is a lot more like experimental, I'd say, overall, and I think it like mostly works. It has some of your favourite tracks on the album. Like I think Homecoming has like a great beat. And I love the synthesizer in it, because it sounds so old school. It sounds like, you know, when you're back in like music class, back when you're in like secondary school and you're just messing about with the keyboards. It sounds like something off that. Yeah, DJ. It sounds like something off that.
For that reason, it sounded like old school hip hop to me in a little way, just musically.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Some of the songs on there are my favourites, like Baby Pluto. You Better Move was kind of funny because the bits at the end of each line was kind of, I don't really like that.
The only problem with that, I was a bit annoyed with that track because like it could have been a lot more potentially great, because it samples like the old Windows XP pinball game.
Oh, really? Nice.
And I thought like it could have been a lot more of an iconic track if it like sampled it a lot better, because it's so bare bones. I know, mate, you haven't listened to the first album by him too much, but there's a track off the first album that he did called For Real, which is kind of similar, where it's like really basic but like quite heavy on the bass. But it just sounds like just a less good version of that, in my opinion. I'm not a big fan of pop either. Just didn't really like his flow on that.
Pop.
I think at the very least on Eternal Atake, there's some quite intergalactic sounding noises in the production. Like I remember there being a track that sounded like it was heavily driven by like a laser sound effect.
Yeah, I think that it might is, if you're thinking of a one that's quite earlier in the album, that's the one we're talking about. Yeah, it's like I say, I think it samples like the old Windows XP pinball game. So I think it's great because it works, not because like it suits that galactic theme, but you think of like the demographic of the Lil Uzi fans are mostly people who probably grew up with that game, so it plays with the nostalgia as well.
Yeah.
But I don't think it lives up to what it could have done, because all it is just kind of repeating the same sample, either on every 8th beat. I think like it could have like mixed it up a bit more interesting. It's a bit disappointing, that one. But I love Low Main as well. I love how that like kind of builds up. Like it's just literally just a basic hi hat, and then he just like it builds up more and more. I love that as well. I think that's a really good idea. But yeah, so there is quite a lot of songs in that section, the Baby Pluto section, I really like. But the Renji section, which is the second part, I think is easily the worst and the most forgettable section for me. And this is where I kind of disagree with you a bit, Alex, because I think this is the most cloud rap sounding section.
Well, when I say it's not too cloud rappy, I've just been in like, it's definitely, if I had to give it one genre, it'd definitely be trap. And yeah, this section does have like a lot of components of what would be cloud rap, especially female vocal samples.
Well, this is the problem that I had with it. The main problem. I was gonna say like just overall that it's just the songs in this section are just too airy, and like they're just not like the sort of quirky Uzi with like the, you know, he's like iconically known for his sticky hooks. Like I don't think there's really any tracks that have that in this section.
Like even I'm Sorry is almost like a rap ballad.
Yeah,
like, if those things even exist, but it's like definitely not the Uzi that a lot of people would know of.
Airy is a really good word for it. The material on LUV Vs the World 2 definitely sounds a lot more coherent and like glued together to me.
Definitely.
And like it's pushing the vibe a lot more vividly, even though the production doesn't necessarily sound anywhere near as expensive as on Eternal Atake. Not to say that it sounds super expensive, like it's an Ariana Grande album or anything like that. But on Eternal Atake, there's a lot of instrumentals that are strangely like empty sounding to me. I don't know if it's because of the placement of things or because of the drum patterns are just so basic in places. Or there's not like a driving sample. Like you were talking about the song that samples the Windows XP pinball game.
Yeah.
They could have done so much more with that,
I know,
as he said.
I know.
I remember most of the sounds from that game, and they could all be implemented in a very musical way, and
exactly.
it could create a much more dense, it could create a more dense atmosphere. But there's just very little going on.
And I try and not think I've been waiting 3 years for this album, because obviously in years to come I won't be thinking about the time I've been waiting for it, but I'm thinking, if they actually worked on this for as long as it's been since the first album, it doesn't sound it, because there could have been so much more depth into that. And just the section, I'm just saying overall, it's just, you mentioned, Alex, about like the backing vocals, like they're on every track in this section, and that's probably why it just feels really like repetitive.
That's true.
I would like to give a pass to the track Chrome Heart Tags, because it's produced by Chief Keef, who I'm a huge fan of.
I was going to say, it's produced by your boy.
But it just sounds like a rejected track from his Thoughtbreaker album. If anyone's familiar with that album, go and listen to a track of it called You and Me, and it just sounds like an alternate version of that. My favourite song in this section, I have to say, is probably easily the song Prices. I love that song because I think, at least with the vocals there, it's kind of like choral, and I really like the sort of like subtly epic like horn samples sort of that they use as well.
I like that song a lot.
Yeah, I really like that, and I think just Lil Uzi just sounds awake on it compared to like the other previous 6 tracks, and it's like way more hooky and like versatile sounding for me. So yeah, definitely the most disappointing section for me is this Renji section.
So if the third section is Lil Uzi Vert, and that's what he wants to call himself, what are the other 2?
I would say for me, Baby Pluto. I don't know why he's called it that, but for me, it's clearly the one that has the more like oomph to it. He sounds a bit more. He kind of sounds like he really trying more to like rap, especially with songs like Silly Watch. Like I think that track it's like the hardest song. It's like with the sinister pianos. Like I think that section is probably the one where if someone was getting into Lil Uzi, that would be like the songs that you would play to them the most. But with Lil Uzi, that section, I think it's honestly called that because it's the one that just sounds most like his earlier stuff. And that was also a reason why I was a bit disappointed with the album. And it's a hard argument really, because I don't want to be that person who says, "Oh, I like the old version of them," But at the same time, it's like he sounds the best when he was doing his earlier stuff, in my opinion.
He quite literally just sounds like he's just doing what he's been doing on the closing track, because it's basically a complete copy of EXO Tour Life with the lyrics changed and a slightly different beat.
It's so non-essential that.
Yeah, it really didn't do anything for me.
No.
We were talking about...
Part 2.
Yeah, part 2. Yeah.
We were talking about Milo before this podcast, and it actually, funnily enough, even though they're completely different artists, it reminded me of the Just Us remake on A Toothpaste Suburb, which was a song from his first mixtape, and it just completely sucked the life out of that song and somehow took it from being one of his best songs to one of his worst ones. And I'd say that's definitely the case with this EXO Tour Life remake as well. I can't even remember what the song name is, but
just pointless. Yeah,
it's missing pointless. A lot. Yeah.
So why did he even make this? Is it because EXO Tour Life has inadvertently become his signature song, and now he wants to own it or have a continuation from it, or
I'd say,
or is it just lazy sequel, or
maybe that? But also, he was known for a while to have a lot of mental issues, and I think the album, well, not the album, sorry, the song EXO Tour Life kind of has a lot of emo rap qualities to it. Like it talks a lot about his mental well-being. So I thought maybe it's kind of like a roundup and like kind of again like the song Sorry, like talking about his mental health. So I kind of think that's a reason why he's went back to it as a sort of like an update in a way. To how he's getting on.
I suppose in a sense it could be seen as like a victory lap as well.
True. Like he's came back. I could agree with that.
Because like you said, it's been a while since he's released anything. It's kind of a way of putting that across, I guess.
The other songs in that section, I really like a lot of them too. For me, I think it's probably got my two favourite tracks on the album in general. I think my favourite one, if I had to pick out of the two, it's a hard one actually. While I'm thinking, have you got like a favourite one, Alex, out of Eternal Atake?
Well, it would actually be the bonus track Futsal Shuffle 2020.
Ah, right. I see. Fair enough.
But if you mean the proper track list that isn't a bonus track, it really might just be like Homecoming or Baby Pluto. But then I do like Urgency. Like I do appreciate Sid's. I've never heard of her before. Sid's presence on the mixtape gives a nice female presence, other than the backing vocals.
She's a member of the Internet, the Odd Future group.
Okay, I'm not too familiar with them. Sorry.
They're okay.
I think I'm just trying to decide between Venetia and Secure the Bag. Those are the two that I'm trying to decide which one I prefer the most. But those two basically are like my favourites, easily on the album.
Nice.
So that's probably why I do quite like a lot of stuff on the third section of the album. I like the song That Way. If we're talking about bonus tracks, I like the hook on that. And
yeah, I like both of the.
Futsal Shuffle is a great track as well. That really got us hyped up for when the album was about to come out.
That's my favourite Lil Uzi Vert song, other than maybe EXO Tour Life and some stuff off the mixtapes. Like Futsal Shuffle 2020, I don't know, it's like the crazy laser pointed synth.
Yeah, it's like a trance track. Yeah, it's like
it's like
old trance track. Yeah, it's great.
I love it.
Yeah,
and
so
it's almost more memorable than the actual beat, that part. It's just amazing. I love that.
I love like the random booming beat. Like it just happens like twice throughout it, but it's like I love that where it sounds like someone's like stomping in like a huge assembly hall. I love that. Just gives it a bit more.
You like That Way as well? Yeah,
That Way as well. I think it samples, or at least it takes a hook from a Backstreet Boys song.
Yeah, just I Want It That Way.
Yeah, but I think he works it into the context of a rap track quite well as well. In terms of full projects, I think Eternal Atake might actually be my least favourite Lil Uzi Vert album, or project in general. Just very hit and miss for me. Or either just not that memorable tracks, or it just annoyed us that I knew songs could have been good with more effort, or just going back into it. Because some of them just sound like drafts. Again, going on about You Better Move. Just a bit disappointing.
Yeah.
Pop as well, definitely.
Yeah, and Pop as well. Yeah, yeah. That just sounded like you came up with that like in a couple of seconds.
It's got the skits though.
Oh yeah, well the skits make it to 10 out of 10. No, I'm only joking.
Greatest skits of the decade so far, hands down.
Yeah,
so atmospheric and intriguing.
I was saying a bit before, like I respect an artist for like moving forward and not sticking to the sound, but I think with Uzi, he wasn't really moving forward with Eternal Atake. He just kind of ended up sounding a bit more like cookie cutter. Like I feel like Lil Yachty kind of lost his sound a bit later on,
I
as well.
Agree. Yeah.
But it's a shame because I know it's mostly true in the sphere of like trap and cloud rap, that a particular rapper is favoured to be on a certain producer's beat. It's just the way it is. Like I wouldn't think, Lil Uzi's not a good rapper unless he's on a certain beat by a producer, because I think same vice versa. Like if I heard a beat by a producer, I'd think, it's a shame that Lil Uzi isn't on that track. So it like works hand in hand, It's a bit like, I don't know, the Smiths without Johnny Marr. It's like, some people would argue the miss having Johnny Marr without Morrissey. But I think of examples like, talking about Lil Yachty, like his early stuff was probably thanks to a lot about Burberry Perry, the producer. Like he really helped make 100%. His sound on Lil Boat. Yeah. Playboy Carti, Pierre Bourne, like he works a lot with him, and that's what helps get his signature sound. Young Thug, London on the Track, Future with like Metro Boomin'. And if you go back into Lil Uzi's early stuff, he's mainly got like these three producers, Don Cannon especially, TM88 and Marley Raw. And apart from TM88, who I guess technically produced this, like I say, non-essential sequel to EXO Tour Life, all three of them aren't on Eternal Atake. And I think that's what makes it lack his earlier sound and what made it so colourful and vibrant. But leading on, that was like my main argument before part 2 came out. But I think despite still not having those I think, in my opinion, signature producers for Lil Uzi, it's definitely homage. It's definitely a bit of a homage to his earlier stuff, and I think it helps that a lot of the songs were made around that 2017 era when he was still kind of in that sort of period as well.
A week after Eternal Atake, this drops out of nowhere. Lil Uzi Vert versus the World 2.
Pretty much. He hyped it up on Twitter quite a bit. He was doing these things where he was like releasing sort of footwork dance videos to snippets of the tracks, which was quite entertaining. I appreciated because he was getting so much like responses back from his fans. Like he was asking like, what songs that have been leaked do you want to hear, and like he basically just collected all of the ones that were the most hyped and just put them all together, which I thought was pretty cool.
That is really cool, actually.
Cool. Yeah,
that's sort of fan interaction that's almost unheard of.
I don't know if you knew as well, but did you know that the album cover was also chosen by the fans too?
Really?
I can't remember how many choices he gave, but he said like these are all like possibilities for ones that it could be, and that he had like a voting thing on Twitter, and so like the fans voted what album cover would be the best. So that fan interaction I thought was really cool. Yeah.
This is something I can actually speak on, just talking about the cover. I don't know if you guys knew this, but it's a recolor of some Brian Lee O'Malley artwork for the Scott Pilgrim series.
Yeah, I could tell from the art design, definitely.
Oh, yeah.
And the first Scott Pilgrim book was called Scott Pilgrim Versus the World, I believe.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't. That's what the film was called.
Yeah.
I was wondering, Eddie, what is the connection here? Does Lil Uzi just like Scott Pilgrim, or?
I think so.
Is that literally as far as it goes? Or?
Probably. Again, like
does he identify with him a little bit as well? Maybe.
Probably.
Ooh.
I mean, this is just from me from like looking into a lot of mixtapes. Like, I've seen a load of rappers just like editing like popular cartoon styles and putting them over it. Yeah. Like, I've seen that happen a lot.
Tekashi 6ix9ine using the Adventure Time.
Oh yeah, that's a big one. Yeah. There's a famous one of I don't know if you've seen that photo, which is quite iconic now, of Common in that all pink fursuit on the phone. There's a one with someone put him with it's mint. It's like it's so cool. But like there's a popular photo of someone like a drawing of like Bart Simpson in that same sort of look, and I've seen so many rappers use that as album artwork. There's other ones like the Baby as well. I think it's done that quite often. Like with the Boss Baby CGI, he's made that into his own album covers. It's like, oh god.
Oh my word.
But there's loads that I kind of think of on the top of my head, but for some reason it is like quite a big thing that. But I'd assume, like you say, it's probably just Lil Uzi. Just being a fan of Scott Pilgrim and just thinking, yeah, that's a cool album cover.
Yeah, because there's another rapper called Kill Bill who has used a lot of Scott Pilgrim imagery, but also references aspects of that series in his music. But I didn't pick up on anything like that happening here. It seems to just be purely an aesthetic thing, which, to talk about the music itself, to me, that's kind of the appeal of this. I felt like it was, like I was saying before, Eternal Atake had a lot of lyrical moments that I found to be quite intrusive, and the beats didn't gel together quite as well. Uzi Vs the World 2, it's a lot more consistent.
Definitely.
It just has more of an energy to it, even though it sounds like less work was put into it, perhaps. But it makes me want to check out his early stuff, even though I wasn't a huge fan of these two albums, because, like you were saying before about with Lil Yachty, as soon as he lost, his main production partner, and the whole sailing team, in fact, who was like his crew for those first few mixtapes, they just had a falling out, from what I understand.
I think
everything he's done since then has been so generic sounding to me. It just doesn't seem to focus on capturing the vibe. So, and I can see that with Lil Uzi on Eternal Atake, it's not that to anywhere near as much of a degree as what happened to Lil Yachty. But if his earlier work captures this vibe more, then I'll definitely check it out.
Yeah, definitely check it out. I can easily say that, and I'm quite happy to say as well, despite us saying that Eternal Atake's probably my least favourite project, this is probably my favourite project by Lil Uzi. just
Oh,
as a
wow,
whole.
even more than the first
Yeah,
one.
more than the first, definitely. And again, I don't want to let like hype affect us. Like I've really tried to think, right, what tracks do I generally really like here, and what do I come back to so much. It's hit and miss. Don't get us wrong. There are some tracks that I'm just like, this is skippable. I don't think it's a perfect release. I think there's a good handful of songs here which I think are absolutely fantastic and definitely some of Lil Uzi's best tracks easily. Myron, I think, is brilliant. I think like especially the second section when he has that I can't slip, no I can't miss that bit. It's like I think that's like pop genius. That I think it's so clever. I love that. I love the Lil Uzi Vert and 21 Savage song, Yeah Sirski. So good, that track. That
was one of my favorite tracks.
I know it uses Pierre on that, and he's on quite a lot of tracks on here in terms of producing, and he suits Lil Uzi really well.
Definitely.
So I think it helps that Lil Uzi, was famously quite friendly with Playboi Carti, who's got that kind of quite minimalistic sound to it as well. They use the kind of quite sort of higher pitch register and very unique ad libs and stuff like that, both quite well. So I think that's why he quite slips into Pierre's production like a glove. But especially Sirski's production, that like female vocal in the background, it just works so well. And I think it's just again genius because like the instrumental to it, really, it's only like 3-4 seconds long and it's just looped for the most part, but it just works as well. It's a great track that.
I just like the contrast between 21 Savage and Uzi. Like 21 Savage more of a low, smooth voice, and then the way Uzi comes in with the higher pitched chorus parts. I just think they work really well together.
They do.
If we're talking features as well, the features on LUV Vs the World 2 are so much better than the features on Eternal Atake.
Agree with you because it makes it more versatile too, and all of the there's only one that I kind of think is a bit off, but apart from one which is Young Nudie, or however you pronounce it.
Young Nudie?
Young Nudie, I think so. I think he ruins that song. But apart from that, apart from his feature, I think all of the features are great. I love Chief Keef. That Bean track, like that's just so Chief Keef, that song. Young Thug and Gunna on Strawberry Pills, both great. As well as Young Thug being on Got the Guap. And I'll probably talk about Leaders a bit later, but that track as well, Nav on that is brilliant, which a lot of people are jokingly saying, I never thought I'd hear such a good Nav feature, but I never thought like Nav was that bad, really. Like
I've never listened to him.
He's not terrible. Like I've always
I thought he was fine on here, honestly.
Yeah, he's great on here. I've liked him since the first time I ever heard about him was when he was on a Travis Scott song.
Oh yeah.
Beebs in the Trap, it's called. It's off his Birds in the Trap sing McKnight. And he produced that song as well, and that's great. And I've quite liked his features ever since I've heard him. But I think he's excellent on Leaders. So I totally agree with Ed that thinking that the features definitely brighten up the whole album and makes it a bit more of an enjoyable listening experience than listening to the whole of Eternal Atake as an album. Like
definitely a more varied one as well, while still sort of committing to the same general vibe.
Totally, and like I say, that vibe, like there's just so much of a better sound. It's so much more bright, and it just sounds like way more like what Lil Uzi should be on, especially with like Moon Relate. I mean, his vocals on that are just nuts, but they're just so good as well.
Moon Relate sounds like a song that could come straight from the first mixtape to me. It's almost the exact same vibe to me. I really love it, especially with the vocals.
Yeah, like the hook, the way he sings it. It's like you just think it's like so simple, the melody, but like it works so well. And like if you took it out of context and you were just singing it, you'd think that's really annoying. But it actually works really well. And I think like he's got a good balance between those sort of songs and tracks like Come This Way, which are a lot more subdued. But like unlike the tracks of Eternal Atake, it's not boring. Like it's still got a bit quirkiness to it. It's still quite catchy.
Yeah. Come This Way is one of my favourites. It really works as being a really laid back, smooth rap to me. It just feels like a really sweet, genuine song as well.
Ed, have you got any favourites of this project, mate?
Honestly, I don't want to say it all blurred into one, because that sounds very much like a bad thing. It was kind of hit or miss overall to me, but the tracks I did like were kind of just contributing to this general vibe, and I didn't really take the time to take note of which tracks those were.
That's fair.
But definitely the track with 21 Savage, really good. Pretty much everything that Pierre Bourne produced on this.
Yeah, all of his ones are great, definitely.
At the very least, I like the instrumental a fair bit. Like I said, I've never listened to a full-length Lil Uzi Vert album before, and I've only really heard some features and EXO Tour Life before this. I just felt like he was rapping about the same stuff for the first however many songs, and it got kind of tedious to me. And I just sort of tuned out of it after that, and I was kind of just focusing on the general atmosphere of things.
I mean, I don't disagree. Like, he's always kind of just been about, like, braggadocio and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But...
Which I really like if it's a group like the Wu-Tang Clan or Run the Jewels, where they're these very witty but also, like, kind of cunning lines that braggadocious. With Lil Uzi Vert on here, it just feels like this general braggadocio that doesn't inspire me in any way. I'm not thinking, oh, hell yeah, you go, Lil Uzi. I'm kind of just thinking,
okay,
why should I care?
No, that's fair.
Honestly, I get it. You know, you get loads of women, you got loads of money, etc. I sound like such a boomer right now, but I really didn't care for the lyrical side of either of these albums that much.
I mean, he's never been a lyrical whiz.
Yeah, that's kind of the main thing holding him back for me.
I agree with that, but I think it's one of those things where I'm just like, I totally agree with you, but I just let it slide with him. And I think it is just his personality.
Yeah, because you love the vibe of it so much. And also, like, the timbre of his voice, I feel like, is something that definitely really appeals to people.
Definitely. It's the playfulness, I think. I mean, yeah, it's a bit show-offy, but I think it's the way that he does it, that it just works for me personally. And I can totally see someone, thinking the same things as I do, but just not like it. But I've always just given it a pass, that sort of thing with me. With Lil Uzi, as long as he's creative with his flows, has a unique melody, and just brings a lot of caricature to a song. That's all I really want for in a trap song, really, in general, but especially with a track with Lil Uzi. He's always been quite futuristic with his sounds as well, and also quite ethereal sounding too. And again, I think that's why I prefer this album, LUV Vs the World 2, more than Eternal Atake. It's definitely more of his sound, and again, just kind of repeating myself, Ed, if you prefer this album, definitely go back and check out his earlier stuff, because it's definitely that vibe. Definitely.
Oh, I will, for sure. Yeah.
Nice.
So when it comes down to it, I just really like the way he raps, which is like half sung, half rapped, focusing a lot on how the melody and how he raps, and just the like accompanying backing vocal parts at the end of his bars as well. That sort of style of his really just always endeared itself to me, and that's kind of why I love Lil Uzi Vert, and why I, generally speaking, like this accumulative project of 2 albums quite a bit.
For Eternal Atake, I would give it a very low 6. Like, it just barely scrapes a 6 for me, like just about 3 stars. But it's a solid 8 out of 10 for me for LUV Vs the World 2. Few tracks, like I say, I'm not big on. I'm not huge on I Can Show You. I wasn't big on Trap This Way. But apart from really those 2 tracks and the Young Nudie feature on Money Spread, those are the only like weak links in this chain. I really, really enjoyed this album, and I hope it's not going to be a huge weight for his next project.
Fingers crossed.
I would give Eternal Atake also a 6 out of 10. Similar reasons. Quite a few great songs. Yeah, just hit and miss, especially towards the middle. I would give Lil Uzi Vert Vs the World 2, I think, a 7 out of 10. I don't think I love it as much as Eddie does, but definitely the stronger of the 2 projects, and the one that's more fun, more strong songs. And I mean, every song here is under 4 minutes, crucially, which means this is a good one if you want to just shuffle the whole project together. You can get some pretty fun combos, or it doesn't take long to get to another song if you're listening to it. I'd say I had about 20 songs, at least, great keepers from the project as a whole. I'm pretty happy with this whole release rollout. So that's a 6 for Eternal Atake and 7 for LUV Vs the World, even though it's Lil Uzi Vert. Solid stuff.
Cool.
I would give Eternal Atake a strong 4 out of 10. Like I said though, I've only heard it once. Maybe it'll grow on me. Maybe it'll grow off me. But yeah, I kind of like the vibe of Eternal Atake, but lyrically I find it really obnoxious most of the way through. The skits are why. Just why. Song subject matter basically non-existent, or it all blurs into one to me. Some really interesting sounds and production, but it really fell apart for me. LUV Vs the World 2 though, I would give a solid 5 out of 10.
Yeah,
I say a solid 5 out of 10 because there were half of the material on here I really didn't care for it all, found it really forgettable, but half of the material I did genuinely like. So if he made a project where it was that material all the way through, I would happily say it's a really good project. So definitely still check these out. And, you know, you should probably listen more to Eddie and Alex than me, because it's a genre I'm not massively familiar with. But just to speak on what I was saying about the lyrical side of things, I'm not saying it needs to be super deep and conscious, I'm also not saying every song needs to necessarily be about something or have a concept to it. But one of the reasons why I liked the Little Boat mixtape so much was because it was kind of so stupid that some of the lines would kind of they went all the way around in their stupidity and became genius. And even though I've only listened to LUV Vs the World 2 twice, I can't remember a single lyric from that album, honestly. And I can't really remember a single lyric from Eternal Atake either. And it's just a big thing for me in any kind of rap music. So even if the subject matter of the songs was, you know, equally as kind of substanceless as it is here, I would at least love it if there were some memorable lines. But I definitely understand the appeal of Lil Uzi Vert in terms of how his voice sounds on these songs, and also the ethereal and atmospheric vibe of the instrumentals. I'm kind of a fan of Dial It, the Playboi Carti album, which, like you said, Eddie, Pierre Bourne produced a lot of. So I think his contributions to this project in particular were my favourite things about it.
Definitely, and I'd hope maybe in the future, you never know, the sort of classic producers with Lil Uzi might make amends and might actually come back, and if they were to make new instrumentals from that, would be amazing. I know, like,
that would be good.
Sure.
I know, Eddie, you haven't tried out his earlier stuff, so you might not be as familiar with the producers that Lil Uzi used to work with, but you might end up agreeing with us and thinking this is the sound that I think Lil Uzi definitely suits.
If it's similar to the whole Sailing Team situation and the fallout with Lil Yachty, then even though it's a sad thing that these artists fall out and stop working together, I at least know that I can go back and check out what you say is more definitive work for him.
Exactly. All right.
Okay, that's our mega double review of Eternal Atake Deluxe, Lil Uzi Vert versus the World 2. A 2-in-1 special, just treating you guys out.
Fantastic.
So, thanks for listening to Busted Speakers. You can check us out on Facebook and Twitter now, and just subscribe to the channel, guys. Come on, you know you want to.
Hit that like button.
Yeah, just hit that like button.
It's the first time I've ever said that.
Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget. I know you might forget, but try not to forget.
Just bear in mind. Okay, thanks guys, like I say. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Catch you later.